Welcome to Lawyer Like an Athlete podcast.
Welcome to Lawyer Like an Athlete podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Wood. I'm a licensed psychologist, executive coach, and author of Lawyer Like an Athlete, which is an ABA published book focused on sustainable high performance in the legal profession. Today, I'm joined by Steve Fretzen, a legal business development coach and host of the Be That Lawyer podcast. Steve works with attorneys on building consistent books of business and creating more control, independence, and direction in their careers. Today, we're talking about attorney success and the strategies that may seem right on the surface, but can actually create more pressure, instability, and long-term dissatisfaction. So welcome, Steve.
Hey, Amy, so happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm really curious about this because we both coach attorneys and we come at this in different ways. So you're more on the business side, the money side, where I'm more on the, psychology, motivation side. So let me ask you first, Steve, in your work with attorneys on business development, how do you define success in a way that is actually sustainable?
Well, I'll kind of give you two answers. One is when they're happy, when they're happy and successful and they're feeling good about their career and their life and they're working the amount of time they want to work and they're feeling, gratitude and they're feeling fulfilled. That's how we know what success is. It's not just, there are people that have $10 million books of business that are miserable. So I think we have to look at holistically what anyone is looking out of their law practice and their life. And then, figure out how will business development, my specialty, help them achieve that? And that, again, freedom, independence, control in a career being some of the fundamentals. But I think that's how I would define success for myself and for my clients. I don't think it's just about, building a huge book of business.
Yeah. So I think we're in agreement about that. I think we're both looking at success as a whole person endeavor. It's not just about money success, because of course that means nothing if you're not a happy person. It's the big picture. But yet I know from my attorneys I coach, it's tough to build a good book of business. So how do you do that in a way where you're actually building your business and feeling satisfied and like you're moving forward, but not burning yourself out?
Well, that's really why business development as a learned skill is so important, because I think what most lawyers are doing is just running at it straight ahead and winging it and getting various results. Sometimes something pops, sometimes it takes, a year to get, a connection to feed you a new referral. And it can be incredibly frustrating. So, the reason I got into working with lawyers as a non-lawyer is because there's such a chasm between not learning anything about business development in law school or at the law firm level. And now they're being asked by their firm or their own, brain saying, look, I need to get my own clients. This is what's going to allow me to have the life I want to have in the future. And then what do? I don't have steps. I don't have a system. I don't have language. So I'm just going to wing it, or I'm going to start studying it, which I recommend books, videos, podcasts like this. And then ultimately some people are going to be ready to just say, you know what, I'm going to hire a coach. If I want a lawyer like an athlete, I'm going to talk to Amy. If I want to be that lawyer, I'm going to talk to Steve. And there's, hundreds of really great coaches and consultants out there that are useful in various, for various different things. But I think that's going to get people more of a direct line to success versus just figuring it out on their own, which can take a tremendous amount of time.
I agree with you. And one thing that I see a lot with the attorneys I coach is this inability to say no. They have this belief, and I think this comes with the dysfunctional culture of attorneys, where you think you have to take every bit of business. And if you say no to anything, not just, I can't take on your case right now, but, I can't call you back at 10 at night, that your client is not going to sign with you to begin with. And if you say no to them while you are serving them as their attorney, they're going to go down the street. So you have to be accessible, 24 hours a day. How do you deal with that? What is your advice to attorneys about that?
Yeah, every smart attorney should have a business plan, a business development plan, a GPS system that tells you where to go and what to say yes to and what to say no to. So if there's areas of practice that you don't enjoy, that aren't profitable, you don't like the people, right? And you're taking it because it's in the door,
Mhm.
right? Then you need to look at how do I increase the other work that I do enjoy that is profitable, so that I can start turning away the stuff that makes me unhappy or miserable. So that's not an overnight switch, although it could be. But I like when people do things gradually, with intelligence and with a plan that says, these are the exact profiles of who I want to work with, the practice areas, and this is how I'm going to go after them. And that most lawyers just don't have a plan that's directly giving them the instruction of what to do and how to do it. And so that makes it very
Mhm.
challenging. Right? It's like if I toss someone a compass and said, hey, make it to, the upper part of Canada. That's great. But like that's I know north, right? But then there's a lot going on there, right?
Mhm.
That could stop me or slow me down versus a really high-end GPS system or travel planner that really kind of, leads you down where you need to go.
Yeah. So what happens, Steve? Because I think attorneys really need to hear this more than once in different ways. What happens when an attorney is trying to build a book of business just way too fast? They're totally focused on that. It's all about getting new clients, and they're saying yes way too much. What happens? Is there overload there that eventually leads to consequences? And how do they correct that?
It could be a major problem. So I'm working to help lawyers double and triple their books of business and have their best year every year. One of the questions I have to ask them is, how many hours are you currently billing a week?
Mhm.
Who are you getting the business from? What are their expectations of you as an associate or as a partner? What kind of time do you have available to do business development? And maybe they're spending way too much doing it, bringing in all this business, but they don't have the delegation, the systems, the people under them to make it all work. So it's like any machine
Mhm.
needs to have the right parts and the right oil. And when you just focus on one part and improving that, but nothing else is changing, then you can end up with a machine that's not going to really work very well. So there's a lot of questions that
Mhm.
need to be answered before lawyers make dramatic change in how they're going to do something to make sure that it all works together. And that's a lot of what you and I do
Yes.
is evaluating people and identifying their strengths, their weaknesses, their gaps. And is this, sometimes I'll say to someone, look, I think I might be the last thing you need
Mhm.
because right now you have more business than you can handle.
Mhm.
You're overwhelmed. You're not sleeping. You're not spending time with your family. Like nothing's working. You may want to consider working with someone who can help you with operations to come up with a system
Mhm.
of how you're bringing in business and how you're hiring people and how you're adding to your
Mhm.
staff to be able to handle this because just more business isn't always the answer.
Yeah, and so the idea here, like you said, it's having the right system, being able to automate certain things, being able to figure out how you're gonna use your time better, so you're working smarter, not harder. One thing that I find, in addition to this idea that attorneys can't say no, which really leads to a lot of burnout and just absolute overwhelm and loss of focus, is also this idea of busyness. It's almost like a status symbol that um, attorneys find value in and boast about. Like, oh, I was working all night, I didn't even sleep, or I was working all week and I have no life outside of work. How can busyness be misleading when someone is trying to evaluate whether their career is moving in the right direction? Because I do find attorneys often use that busyness as a way to um, identify, like, I'm so busy, I must be successful.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to unpack that, Amy. The
Mhm.
the answer is, again, it comes back to a plan. It comes back to focus, evaluating. Are you saying yes to everything? And out of 10 things, there's maybe two that you should be
Mhm.
doing. And to go back to an earlier question of like, all right, so lawyers, I think, struggle with saying no because they just don't know how, or maybe they're being opportunistic.
Right.
But one thing that I learned a long time ago that I would love to share with your
Mhm.
audience and is, and I use this on the regular because I'm being asked all the time to do things. Now, you asked me to do your
Yes.
podcast. I, I'm never going to say no to you, Amy. It's
Right.
just not. It's not in the thing.
Mhm.
But I get asked to do CLEs and all kinds of things
Mhm.
that I qualify, and I kind of realize this isn't the best use of my time, and I'm very busy right now. And I talk about a policy. So I tell people, I go, look, I would love to do this for you. It's right in my
Mhm.
wheelhouse. Unfortunately, I have a policy that when I have, X number of clients in place, or when I already am overburdened with other obligations, that I'm not going to take something on that I can't give 100%
Mhm.
to. But I can't tell you how much I appreciate you asking, and I would love for you to keep me in mind in the
Yes, I think
future.
that's great. A lot of times when I talk to attorneys, they don't want to say no because they think saying no is going to offend someone. And I often talk about this idea of being assertive, which is not aggressive or obnoxious. It's simply respecting yourself and your own limits while respecting other people. So it doesn't have to be a difficult conversation. It's just about knowing what you need to do to be at your best because that's when you're most
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah, we almost had a riot in my class. I teach a class. I've got about 20 lawyers every
Hmm.
Tuesday morning, and and they're all brilliant, brilliant attorneys and budding rainmakers. And one of them brought a point like a client wants me to be on a panel, and this is where I get a ton of business and everything. But I'm wondering if I should say no because she's so
Hmm.
busy. And it was like a riot in the room of all these attorneys. Like, are you kidding me? You don't say no to a
Right.
client and you don't turn that down and
Uh-huh.
everything. And she's like, okay, okay, I get it. I get it. But I'm trying to instill in them the importance of saying no and the importance of protecting time.
Mhm.
Because if we're saying yes to all these things that don't align or may or may not align with our goals and our plan, then it really waters down what we're trying to accomplish together. Where maybe there's low hanging fruit that we should be
Mhm.
investing time in versus stuff that may be, one or two off from where the business really may be.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is not getting sucked into just reactive activity, which I think a lot of us do because we're all so busy and just trying to check things off. And so I find with attorneys when they are moving through the day like that with so much to do and they're just trying to, return that phone call, return that text, get this done, get that done, they end up making more mistakes and it ends up costing them more time. They end up with more miscommunication with people. They can have even conflict from moving too fast. So what are some steps that attorneys can take to begin to be more intentional? Because it's counterintuitive when you're an attorney, right? To be intentional, you're just
Yeah.
moving so quickly. How can they start that on that path?
Beating the drum here, but you have a plan that provides what strategies and what targets and what focus and where you should be investing time and where you shouldn't. And an exercise I do with my clients, and it's not rocket science at all, but it really works and helps, is what are the 3 or 4 things that we're going to focus on this month, and then every other thing that comes your way, idea, someone has a request of something
Mhm.
that they want you to do, a new CLE that they want you to provide, whatever it is, we throw it on another list called like an ideas list or a get to it list.
Mhm.
And we focus on the core 3 or 4 or 5 things that we need to do in the month. And then if you start opening up gaps with knocking out the priorities, then if you want to start bringing over some ideas or some other things that you want to engage in and you have the time and capacity,
Mhm.
great. The other thing I'll share is that a lot of lawyers, especially what we're called service
Mhm.
partners, are taking in so much work from their partners that they don't have the time to go out and get business or when they're
Mm.
going out and getting business. And they're just saying, and when you talk about busyness,
Yes.
a lot of the busyness and busy work is the work that they're getting from their partners where they don't get credit.
Yes.
They get the billable hour credit, but they don't get the origination credit or any kind of management credit in most instances. So I'm coaching them on a regular basis to say, look, I appreciate you continuing to feed me this work. It's really wonderful. I need a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a break from taking on more right now because I have a number of irons in the fire with my own, business development and trying to grow my own book of business. So I want to make sure I take care of you and your people, but I also want to integrate
Mhm.
similar to how you've done it, John
Yes.
or Karen, in your practice. I want to do the same thing for myself. If they don't kind of get
Mhm.
that, then you're dealing with someone that is just out for themselves, right?
Right.
They just want their work done by you, and they're not really interested or caring that you have a career that you want to expand and have your own control and freedom the way they
Mhm.
do. And I get it, but that's something that lawyers are having to maneuver on a regular basis because they're just so busy with everyone else's
Mhm.
stuff.
So, how do you balance all that? When you're talking about business development, I certainly know as an entrepreneur that you have to be out there building business and do it as you're in the way you're talking about with discernment and being intentional. But then the business starts to come in and then you have a lot of work, but you can't let go of the business building. So, how do you do both? How do you have a system around that so that you're not constantly switching back and forth?
We can't take away from the importance of delegation and automation
Mhm.
that there's more tools now than that have ever existed in humankind. And so, whether it's email automation or having that email delegated to someone to go through, because you're 6 hours in your inbox,
Mhm.
and it could be, can you get it down to 3? So let's say you get it down to 3 because you're automating or
Mhm.
delegating the responsibility of getting rid of spam and getting rid of the easy, sure, Cheryl, I'd love to meet with you on Friday. That works for me, because someone can check your calendar and
Mhm.
make that decision quickly. That those 3 hours a day is, 15 hours a week. Well, 15 hours a week, we start doing the math, we got 60 hours more a month.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a significant amount of time to invest in business development, to invest in doing high level work. And there's, it's not just email. There's all kinds of administrative and sort of low level stuff that lawyers find themselves doing. I caught an estate planner
Mhm.
years ago. We tracked his day, and we identified that he was spending 2 hours a day, every day,
Mhm.
printing documents.
Oh my
Printing
goodness.
documents, because estate planning is very document
Yes.
heavy, and there's a lot of people that we got to print so 2 hours a day of printing documents and taking them off and stapling them and prepare. What are you doing,
Mhm.
man?
Yeah.
Like, that's like if I call a doctor, the top brain surgeon in the world, and he picks up his phone and he's, the answering service for his medical practice. That's insane.
Yes. That is insane. Uh, I think that one thing that attorneys could really benefit from is, a lot of them will say, my life is out of control. I have too much work. People want too much from me. I don't have time to do what I really want to do, and on and on. If they really stop and meet with a coach, or just do this on their own, get a balcony view of how they're actually using their time and how they're not taking control where they actually can to save time, like with AI and automation, like with managing their technology and not being sucked into every beep and every ring they hear, and constantly be switching from one task to another. So I think that really, for me, is the benefit of coaching overall. I don't know if you would agree, but to have someone sit down with you and really assess, where are you putting your time? Because we think we know, and we also think, oh, there's so much I can't control. And yet we're putting time into controlling things that we have no control over. Like I hear a lot these days, there's so much news out there. And attorneys feel the need to have news alerts because everything's a breaking headline. So they're getting interrupted all day long. And I tell them to get rid of the alerts. What's gonna go wrong,
Yeah.
And they end up feeling more control.
There's just a lot of moving parts,
Yes.
Amy, and it's hard for lawyers to maneuver with how they're setting expectations with
Mhm.
clients so that they're not calling them all the time, or how they delegate email or automate email. They're not thinking about all these things that are interrupting their day. And so, like, for example, I give out, I've got 5 books, and I
Mhm.
give out 6 when I have a new client. And the 6th book is Getting Things Done by David
Yep.
Allen. Well, why give that book out? Because how are you going to do business development or anything in your career if you don't have any concept of how to manage or master your
Yes.
time? That's like, it's the biggest oxymoron in the illegal industry, that you're billing on time, and time is your most precious
Yes.
asset. Yet lawyers don't study or be a student of the game of time
Yeah, that's pretty
management.
crazy.
Like, that doesn't make sense at
Yeah.
all.
So, Steve, we're almost at the end of speaking of time, we're almost at the end of our time here. I just wanna ask you one more thing, and that is, you're a really busy guy. You have a lot of things going on. You've got a podcast, you're an author, you're a coach, you're a speaker. How do you do it? Like, if you could offer maybe 1 or 2 tips and how to manage time to be more effective and to be sustainable with the success that you have.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I was not always organized. I was a feather on the wind entrepreneur. You blow this way or that way, picking up a shiny penny. Like, I had stacks of business cards, stacks of paper
Uh-huh.
everywhere, post-it notes on top of post-it notes, and I'd sit there and ruffle through them to try to figure it out. I read Getting Things Done by David
Mhm.
Allen. I went through it very methodically to figure out where my deficits
Mhm.
were. And since then, and we're going back like 18 years, I'm at a zero inbox every day.
Wow.
I'm 100% paper free. Okay. I take off Fridays,
Mhm.
right? But you say, well, Steve, but you have 2 podcasts,
Yes.
books, articles, all this stuff. It's all automated and
Mhm.
delegated. I've become really sophisticated at how I'm running my day, with only leaving open certain slots in my
Yeah.
calendar, with calendar links, limiting my emails, getting out of every email that I don't need to be in.
Mhm.
And I have an automation tool now I'm using called JSAI that automates my emails in and out. So I just can click send
Yeah.
instead of having to write an email. There's all these great things. And I've got two assistants that, two marketing directors and a manager, a CMO and a marketing director that handle 90% of my stuff.
Wow.
So I just can sit here and create content and upload it, and I'm sort of out, and then everything happens around me.
Yeah. Well,
But I'm trying to emulate that for my
yeah.
clients because I want them to, it's not about a brag or anything. It's I had to work hard to get to this point so that I can now teach it and demonstrate for my clients what life can be like when you get on the other side of
Yeah.
insane.
You have to be a raw model for your clients. And
Wow.
one thing I love that you just said is that you're running your day. Your day is not running you. And I think if our listeners can take that away and figure out, okay, how can I start running my day instead of getting pulled in every direction by my day?
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Steve, for joining me today. And if you would just let people know how they can reach you and learn more about your coaching and your podcast and your books.
100%. Appreciate that, Amy. So to check me out further, go to bethatlawyer.com. That's where I've got, the Be That Lawyer community, which we just launched. We have the books, we have the articles, the blog, the video. It's all there. Podcasts, Future Rainmakers, and Be That Lawyer. And again, I'm very, responsive, and I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. So connect with me on LinkedIn. But I want to be, if you're interested in growing your law practice, I'd love to be a part of that journey with you, whether you work with me or not. I'm trying to be of service here. So happy to do that. And thank you, Amy, for giving me a little spotlight to kind of talk about what I
Yeah.
do, but also to give some advice to lawyers who are maybe struggling with much of the things you're bringing
Yeah.
up today.
Well, thank you again, Steve, so much. This has really been very effective and useful. And we did it all in a half hour, which is a great use of time. So thanks, everyone, for joining me for this episode of Lawyer Like an Athlete podcast. And if this conversation challenged how you think about success in the legal profession, you can learn more about my work and my book, Lawyer Like an Athlete, at amywoodpsyd.com. And if you found this discussion I had with Steve today helpful, there's more coming. Please subscribe and share this episode. And if you can, leave a review so more attorneys can rethink what sustainable success really looks like.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.